Tonight, while wildfires continue to burn across Los Angeles, the scope of the damage is coming into view.
Driving around some of these areas, they literally look like war zones. It is not safe.
The latest from California, plus confirmation hearings kick off this week on Capitol Hill. What to expect as the president-elect's picks sit before the Senate. And
health is much better off, both our mental health as well as our physical health.
How getting a good amount of sleep helps you stay healthy. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Los Angeles facing the threat of even bigger fires tonight as first responders work around the clock to tame the inferno. Good evening, I'm Jenna Browder. Tonight, Los Angeles is bracing for a nightmare scenario. A growing number of firefighters are pouring into the region as powerful winds threaten to spark new flames and erase hard-won progress. Crews from across the U.S., Canada, and Mexico are on the front lines with water trucks and planes ready for action. But the National Weather Service is warning the next few days could be particularly dangerous. Tuesday is expected to be the worst, with winds gusting up to 65 miles per hour.
Elevated critical fire weather conditions will continue through Wednesday. Please rest assured that your County of Los Angeles Fire Department will be prepared. These winds, combined with low humidities and low fuel moistures, will keep the fire threat in all of Los Angeles County very high.
In just 1 week, 4 fires have ripped through more than 60 square miles, an area larger than San Francisco. Thousands of buildings destroyed and at least 24 people confirmed dead. Officials have not determined causes of any of the fires yet. Federal ATF agents are leading the investigations. Meanwhile, crews are in place to protect homes from looters. CBN's Operation Blessing is on the ground helping. Chief Operation Officer Drew Friedrich is here now to share more about those relief efforts. Drew, great to see you this evening. I know you're in Virginia Beach at CBN headquarters, but what are some of the biggest needs your crews are seeing there in California?
Sure. Hey, thanks for having me on, Jenna. You know, this has been a real challenge, I think, for everybody involved, certainly the firefighters, and our thoughts and prayers are with those who've lost loved ones first and foremost, but certainly memories and homes and those kinds of things. But, you know, traditionally when we show up after a disaster, after a hurricane, after a terrible storm, the worst of it's over. But right now with these fires still burning, the situation's changing minute by minute, hour by hour. And so I think there's a lot of uncertainty. Certainly people have been displaced from their homes. I think there's over 180,000 people who are either under an evacuation order or a warning. They can't drink the water. We've been in many places where there's been boil notices, but even here it's beyond a boil notice. You have to drink and use bottled water because of the toxicity in the air. So there's so many challenges. People are displaced, they're confused, they're certainly traumatized by what they've seen. And as you mentioned earlier, the weather's not getting better, the winds are picking up, and that only means the storms are going to get worse, the fires are going to get worse for a little bit.
Yeah, and where are your crews stationed there, Drew?
Yeah, we've been spread across the city of LA a little bit. You know, there's multiple fires burning. We've responded to the Palisades area, working with Bel Air Church, and then also the Eaton fire, primarily with Cathedral Church, where we distributed over 1,000 meals the other day. So the team's been spread out. It's difficult to get around the city, as you can imagine. A lot of places are restricted. You know, the firefighters are still fighting fires, so they keep people out of those areas. But we're trying to focus on those 2 areas, make a big impact.
You mentioned the meals. What are some of the other aid and resources you guys are able to provide to the suffering people out there?
Sure. Yeah, one of the biggest needs right now really and truly is bottled water. It seems like we just can't get enough of it in there, so we're shipping truckloads into the area. But also hygiene supplies. Again, you can imagine if you've lost your home in a fire, everything you own is gone, including all your toiletries, all the things that you and I take for granted every single day, deodorant, toothbrush, shampoo, all those things. And so even though these people might be in hotels, which are overwhelmed, or staying with friends and family, being able to have a hygiene kit show up, again, non-perishable food is also helpful for those who are on the move, making sure they can feed their families, diapers, formula, all the things that you, again, don't think about until you have to have them. Those are the kinds of things that we're helping to get into the area right now.
Yeah, and that you can't just go to the store. They can't just go to Target or the grocery store down the road anymore. Drew, can you share with us any stories about maybe how God is working in all of this? Have you heard anything of that sort?
Sure. You know, I think there's lots of we all have a history, I think, with the city of LA. I mean, we all see it in movies and it looks so glitzy and glamoury, but these people are really, really hurting right now. And I think what we've found across the board working with places like Bel Air Church, like the Dream Center, like Cathedral Church, is that the church is really rising up in this moment and recognizing this is a terrible, devastating situation for sure, but it's the time for the church to show up and show what true love and compassion actually really looks like. And so we were at the Dream Center the other night for a big prayer and outreach event, and we saw so many people who, whose hearts maybe weren't open to the Lord before, realizing their desperate need for someone to love them, to care for them. Our team's able to pray for people, being able to receive a hot meal, is such a small thing, but when you desperately need it, it makes a big difference. And so we've seen so many of those kinds of things. But you hear stories of so much selflessness, people whose homes have been burned down. And, I heard of a couple teachers that are married to one another, and the husband and wife, their house was burning down, but they're here volunteering, helping to feed other people. Yeah. And so I think disaster certainly is a terrible thing, but it often reveals the best of us as well, especially those of us who know the Lord.
Yeah, most definitely. And if people want to help, they can go to ob.org to find out how you can partner with Operation Blessing in this time of need for the people of California. Drew Friedrich with Operation Blessing. Drew, great to see you. Thank you so much. All right, back in Washington, the Senate is gearing up for a busy week here as hearings on President-elect Trump's new administration begin. The confirmation process of Trump's high-profile nominees enters a crucial stage as senators vet nominees for key roles. Let's go now to Capitol Hill correspondent Michelle London, who joins us with the latest. Michelle?
Well, Jenna, 14 confirmation hearings are scheduled this week. And perhaps the most contentious hearing happens tomorrow. That's when the Senate Armed Services Committee considers the nomination of former Fox News host Pete Hegseth for Defense Secretary. Democrats hope to recruit some Republicans to join them in rejecting a few of Trump's picks. At least one Armed Services Committee member, Senator Mark Kelly, is skeptical of Hegseth's qualifications.
Look at his personal conduct, especially when he was managing Veterans for Freedom and Concerned Veterans of America. These two organizations were financially mismanaged.
While Kelly wants more details on Hegseth's background, Republican Senator John Barrasso says he is the right man for the job.
He knows about a fit fighting force. He is very qualified, in my opinion. He has a distinguished record of service in the military.
What they want to do to make sure that department is properly oriented for the threats of the world and make sure that we're putting the warfighters first.
Still, the nominee will have to defend himself against sexual assault and excessive drinking allegations.
Very proud of you, and you got our full support.
Thank you.
Although he did seek and gain support on Capitol Hill visits last month. Currently, Senate Republicans have 53 seats, so nominees don't need Democrat votes. Even so, they cannot afford to lose more than 2 Republicans. Other high-profile cabinet nominees on the schedule include Homeland Security picks South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, as well as Pam Bondi, Trump's nominee for Attorney General.
When I talked with Pam Bondi, she committed to me to getting back to doing the job of the people, to getting back to doing what the department was created to do. So whether we're talking about the AG, whether we're talking about the FBI, whether they're talking about the Department of Defense, people want these agencies, these departments to actually work for the American people.
Despite criticism of some of his picks, Trump is urging Senate Republicans to stay united and quickly confirm his selections in the opening days of the administration. GOP response will show an early test in the relationship. Trump and Senate allies would like to have at least some officials in place within hours of his swearing in. When deciding on Trump's cabinet picks, Rick Klein, ABC News Washington bureau chief, says policy substance should be weighed over personalities.
I think these next couple of days are going to begin to flesh out what Trump wants to do, what his people want to do, and what kind of team he's going to have around him.
And come Inauguration Day next Monday, Republican leaders remain committed to advancing Trump's picks. However, some analysts believe chances are low that more than a few will be ready for the votes by then. Jenna.
All right, Michelle, thank you very much. And in other news, TikTok is warning of major consequences if the Supreme Court upholds a law that would ban the platform in the United States unless its Chinese parent company sells it by January 19th. The High Court is expected to rule in favor of the government, which says the app poses national security concerns. TikTok claims a ban would violate free speech rights. If the law is upheld, TikTok would be removed from app stores, affecting millions of American users. Coming up, lives hang in the balance as ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas heat up. Will it bring peace? Next on Faith Nation. Welcome back. President Biden kicked off his farewell tour in Washington this week with a speech at the State Department focusing on his foreign policy legacy. During his address, he argued that his administration has strengthened partnerships around the world and improved the United States' position on the global stage.
Compared to 4 years ago, America is stronger. Our alliances are stronger. Our adversaries and competitors are weaker. We have not gone to war to make these things happen. During my presidency, I've increased America's power at every dimension. We've increased our diplomatic power, creating more allies than the United States has ever had in the history of our nation. We've increased our military power, making the most significant investments in the defense industrial base in decades.
Biden's presidency was shaped by two major wars in Ukraine and Gaza. While he's praised for helping Ukraine defend itself against Russia, some Republicans have accused him of spending too much money on Ukraine. Criticism also lingers among Republicans and Democrats over his handling of the Israel-Hamas war. The speech marks the start of his final days in office, with more reflections expected throughout the week. Overseas, a major breakthrough in the Middle East. Today, negotiators gave Israel and Hamas the final draft of a proposal to end the war in Gaza and free Israeli hostages. It's the closest both sides have come to a truce after more than a year of fighting. Right now, there are few details about the deal, but CNN reports Hamas is expected to release 33 hostages. For months, Hamas demanded that any agreement must lead to a permanent end of the war and Israel's complete withdrawal from Gaza. Those conditions Israel has consistently rejected, insisting that it will not stop until the terror group is destroyed. Today's news provides some hope to Gazans and the relatives of Israeli hostages.
I am not optimistic, but I hope there will be a ceasefire. Everyone hopes for calm and comfort, but what we see on the ground is different and does not indicate that there will be a ceasefire.
We implore all world leaders to make a deal and bring all 99 remaining hostages home. They represent 23 different nations. They are Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, and Buddhists.
The next 24 hours are crucial as both sides review the terms, with pressure mounting to reach an agreement before the U.S. presidential inauguration on January 20th. And joining us now, senior research analyst and editor at the Foundation for Defense of Democracy's Long War Journal. Joe, welcome. So what are the odds, you think, we see a deal here?
Hi, thanks for having me. Well, I'm cautiously hopeful, rather, that there will be a ceasefire deal. However, we have to be honest here. We've been here before where there's positive news that has come out of Israel where a ceasefire was close, but for it only to stall. So I am hoping something will happen here, something positive. But again, I'm not holding my breath until I see hostages being released on TV.
Yeah. If an agreement is reached, Joe, who's to say really that Hamas wouldn't strike again? Or I guess what I'm asking, what steps need to be taken to enforce the ceasefire so that Hamas doesn't do this October 7th type of attack again?
Right. So this is the problem here that I think Israel finds itself in. Now, Israel established several goals for the war, for it to achieve at the beginning of the war. Obviously, they wanted to get the hostages back, but they also, another aim or another goal was to eliminate Hamas. So the problem is that these two goals may not be compatible with each other. Israel may not be able to get all the hostages back if it destroys Hamas. So what it seems that they're doing is that Israel's trying to get the hostages back from Hamas. However, as it stands today, what remains of Hamas, albeit they've been severely degraded, militarily especially, and of its allies in the Gaza Strip, because there's more than just one terrorist organization in Gaza. If the war were to stop today or tomorrow, Hamas would be able to regenerate, meaning that several years down the road, we'll be back at square one, where Hamas can launch these type of October 7th style attacks. And that's a problem for Israel. That's been a dilemma for them since the beginning of this war, I think. So nevertheless, I think this is a possibility here. I think the decision makers in Jerusalem know this, but they're opting to get the hostages first.
Yeah. Joe, let's talk about the significance of the significance of the timing here. You know, they want to get it done before the inauguration next Monday, January 20th. Why such a push to get it done before then?
Right. I think both sides, both actors here, whether it's Israel or Hamas, especially Hamas, they do believe what President Trump has said, that Hamas needs to release the hostages by the time he gets into office. I believe he's right. And I think right now, Hamas, and actually you can say this since the beginning of the war, that Hamas's biggest goal, or their chief goal, wasn't to protect Palestinian people. It's to ensure their survival. Hamas wanted to ensure that they survived the war, that at least some of their elements remained intact. So I think what their strategy right now is, the way they see it, is now is the best chance to survive the war, meaning sign a ceasefire deal.
Yeah. All right, Joe Truzman with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you for coming on tonight. Great to have you. All right, up next, cold and flu season in full swing. What you can do to avoid the virus blues right after this. Health officials are warning about a deadly surge in respiratory illnesses. Right now, levels are high in at least 35 states. Doctors are calling it a winter quademic, a rise in COVID, RSV, stomach viruses, and the flu. Emergency rooms across the country are seeing a major spike. In Chicago, 2 children under 2 have died from the flu this year. In Louisiana, kids are crowding ERs with stomach viruses. And in Minnesota, hospitals report 30% more patients than last year and longer wait times. Doctors say holiday gatherings and low vaccination rates are to blame. To stay safe, wash your hands and don't forget to wipe down kids' toys. Well, one way to fight back against these illnesses is to make sure you're getting enough sleep. Researchers show people who do not get enough sleep are 4 times more likely to catch a cold. Medical reporter Lori Johnson has more.
Scientific evidence shows that how much we sleep directly relates to our immune system function. Getting plenty of Z's helps repair just about every system within our bodies.
When people get the sleep they need, they're more productive, they're more creative, they are better partners, they're better parents, they're more empathetic, and their health is much better off, both our mental health as well as our physical health.
Most adults need about 8 hours a night to feel refreshed and ready for the next day.
And on the shorter end, like when we get less than 5 hours, that is certainly kind of a risk factor for lots of negative health outcomes.
Anxiety often creates a barrier to sleep. People who struggle with this should consider preparing for bedtime a full 2 hours before lights out. That means moving from work, news, and electronics to something more calming, familiar, and pleasant.
Oftentimes people treat themselves like they're computers, that you can just kind of flip the off switch and then kind of go to sleep. And that's just not how the body works.
Setting your alarm clock so that you wake up at the same time every day, even on the weekends, is a useful tip to help gain control over when our body naturally gets sleepy, also known as circadian rhythm.
One of the things that happens with insomnia is that people try to kind of adjust their wake time based on how their night was, right? So like they have a bad night of sleep and they'll sleep in an extra 2 hours. But what that does is it kind of throws the whole system off. It actually kind of puts you in jet lag without having any of the benefits of traveling.
If you often toss and turn in the middle of the night, try getting up and moving to a different location like the couch. That can help your brain not associate anxiety with your bed, something called conditioned arousal.
So, you have your angstiness and your bed, and you need to break those apart and wait until you get sleepy again. So you don't want to turn on all the lights. You don't want to do anything really active. You want to go back to those relaxing things that are known to kind of bring on that sleepiness for you. And when you begin to feel sleepy again, you kind of repair that relationship so that, over time, when you get back in bed, the bed does what it's supposed to do, is cue you to fall asleep.
Exercise during the day tends to help us sleep well. So does a dark room that's a cool 65 degrees. On the other hand, things that can get in the way include caffeine and alcohol, which can suppress important dreaming or REM sleep.
The other thing that alcohol does is it's relaxing, right? It hits on those receptors in our brain that make us feel relaxed, but it wears off. And when it wears off, your brain notices, and that also leads to more awakening.
Also, try to avoid sleep medications and other aids.
Even if many of them are not physiologically addicting, they become almost immediately psychologically addicting, right? We start to wonder, can we sleep without these? And so it's a slippery slope to go down.
Lastly, head off worrying in bed by setting aside time during the day to make a list of your problems and the first step towards a solution. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Ahead, an inspiring harmony of faith. Next on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, an example of faith in the midst of tragedy. Like thousands of other Californians, the Halpin family lost their home and everything they own in a wildfire. And their response has gone viral. Gathered around the statue of the Virgin Mary, the only structure that was left on their property, Peter and Jackie Halpin, along with their 6 adult children and spouses, sang a prayer in harmony. And one of the Halpin sons says music and faith in Jesus are the foundations of their home. And that's beautiful to see. We're going to leave it there tonight. Have a great night, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.